What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Hacktroid Crypto, and today I have a very special guest for this episode, and we have Ash, the founder of LiveTree ADEPT, on the line, and I have a couple questions for him. I just want to dive right into the interview so you guys get a sense for the fact that LiveTree ADEPT is disrupting Hollywood, helping filmmakers crowdfund their funding for films, feature films, and independent studios funding their projects and getting them in front of entertainment audiences and basically flipping Hollywood upside down with the power of the Ethereum blockchain. So let's just dive right into the interview with Ash. How's it going, everybody? I'm here with Ash of LiveTree ADEPT. I did a previous stream with some details on LiveTree ADEPT, and I wanted to catch up with them, get some details for everyone. And how's it going, Ash?
Yeah, very good. Thanks.
Good.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So just to kind of let the audience know who you are, what's your background, and why did you start LiveTree ADEPT?
Yeah, so I won't go into the full geeky details, but yeah, I was born in London. I studied computer science out in Seattle, worked for Microsoft out there, and was lucky enough to work with the creators of the first MP3 player, which was Winamp.
Cool.
Exited out there, came back to Europe and started a gaming company out in Switzerland. We bought out and exited out of that company, moved back into London and worked within the area of finance for a number of years, within the area, artificial intelligence, regulatory space, and really got an insight into various different asset classes that they trade, how the financial system works, derivatives, fixed income, all kinds of different types of products.
Wow.
And began to realize, how weighted the financial system was to the top 1%, and thought about how do we create a different type of funding platform. And I'd been introduced to entertainment a number of years before, and I really see that as a window of change. Everyone watches TV, everyone is engaged in that favorite film or TV show, and how do we change that dynamic? And it turns out that, film and TV creators are very familiar with crowdfunding, which is now very commonplace. But we wanted to set ourselves apart. And, the likes of Indiegogo, Kickstarter, how would we compete with those big players out there?
Yeah.
So we specialize in film, TV, and content. And then secondly, we looked at the major challenges with crowdfunding, which is, as a project creator, you need to be able to go out and market your project. And all of that marketing is down to you. Typically on Kickstarter, it costs about $20 per acquisition. So it's a pretty high price to invest in order to build a project. Mm-hmm. And we thought about changing that dynamic. So we thought about what is the best way to market, and it turns out that the best way is through word of mouth recommendation. It's something we do every single day, probably without thinking. And how do we take those dollars back from the advertising giants such as Google, Facebook, and so on, and give that back to the fans of the actual project, the non-profits, the organizations that could surround them? So we set up an incentive scheme whereabouts the project creator could allocate a percentage of what they raise to people who contributed to get people to fund the project. Using that model, just over the last 2 years, we've seen some phenomenal growth. We've captured 5% of the market share. Globally, this is a $1 billion market. And we started thinking about what is the next evolution of the platform about 9 months to a year ago. And I'd always been interested in blockchain technology, since 2000, eCash, DigiCash days, and thought about how do I break down some of the challenges that these content creators are facing when it comes to getting it onto screen, that is, getting it into cinemas and getting it onto TV. And likewise, with the ethos of LiveTree, how do we create win-wins for distributors to actually want to be on the platform? So we've fostered some amazing relationships over those last 2 years with the likes of the British Film Institute, Screen Arts Institute, a number of different, we've got 14,000 odd suppliers within our directory. How do we create a system that is going to empower the fan to start taking control and disrupt how the likes of Hollywood, how the likes of top execs are essentially censoring data before it gets onto screen?
Mm-hmm.
And the blockchain really provided us that answer. So the blockchain is really used for, we looked at the blockchain for two primary reasons. One, for the smart contracts. So when you create your content, you need to license it. And that license is typically through a contract. And that contract is oftentimes bespoke per project. So how do we build a contracting system that simplifies that negotiation process? And the blockchain, again, a distributed ledger, is the perfect and ideal solution for that particular problem.
Okay, well that's fantastic. How big of a team do you guys have? What stage are you at right now?
So over the last 2 years, we've built a revenue generating model. As I said, we've captured 5% of the market. We're at a stage now where we can immediately realize value for token holders. So we have, on that distribution side that I was talking about earlier, we actually have 3 feature films lined up. We have the contract, we have the distributors lined up. So we can immediately realize revenue, and we operate in a buyback token model. So that means as all the profits, all of the revenue generated by the platform goes into purchasing seed, and seed is created in a fixed quantity, so that as the demand for the seed token grows, the expected value is going to rise.
Yep.
So we are currently in a stage where we've got all of the pieces in the puzzle to immediately realize revenue. And I think this is really an important point, because I see so many projects out there nowadays that they don't have a proven business model. They have never turned over a single transaction,
yep.
And they don't have any way to actually generate value for the token holders themselves. And coming from a revenue generating business, we're going to transform the crowdfunding market. This is the only platform that has crowdfunding plus distribution brought together and is community powered. So the crowdfunding market itself alone is a $1 billion industry globally. I expect us, because we have the crowdfunding and the distribution side brought together, us to really take a large section of that, and to expand that crowdfunding model into the $500 billion distribution market.
Yeah.
So it's really about changing the model of how content gets distributed and taking advantages of what the blockchain can do to provide efficiency gains.
Yep.
Now, recognize the industry, and this is again something that kind of bothers me with some of the other ICO projects, where they claim they're going to change these big industries, but they have very little contacts within the industry itself. Now, we spent 2 years building up industry partners, and we recognize that not everyone is going to start using the blockchain instantly. Dollars are still going to be used for certain projects because people need to be paid in dollars. People need to be paid in pounds or euros. But how do we create a system that supports that and migrates them over to a decentralized platform? And that's really where the fees come in. So when I talk about a $1 billion crowdfunding market, our fees are set up considerably lower than competition, 2.5% compared to Indiegogo, Kickstarter at 5 to 20%. When we talk about distribution and the licensing model, legal fees there range from 10 to 20% on multi-million pound deals. Yep. So, we're bringing in an efficiency gain for the industry, and that brings in the higher value projects, whether they be independent studios. I mean, for example, I was talking to a number of different producers, like a producer for The Office. He has a content catalog, right, sitting there that hasn't got to screen. And he would use the distribution part of this to negotiate deals, to get this content out there. And the token holder would be profiting by taking that percentage, that fee, out of the legal fees. So this is a real world solution to real world problems.
Yeah.
This is about managing digital rights. This is taking an existing business that's revenue generating and taking it to the next level by utilizing what the blockchain can do for the right reasons, not just to raise funds for an ICO, but to underpin the entire transformation of an industry. And we see that as a staged process. And we've recognized that, as a revenue generating business, we need to realize revenue for our token holders immediately, as quickly as possible. And we've built a model where we can do that. We'll be migrating our existing crowdfunding business into the platform. And again, our fees are set so much lower than competition. Our features are so much more broader than any kind of competition out there. I think we will be able to capture a large part of that market.
Gotcha.
As we capture the market share, I see indies, as you say, emerging content makers will be using it from the funding side. The professionals will be using it from the distribution side. And that's bringing the two together. So driving the market is really the community, is the fan. They get to decide the stars of tomorrow. They get to disrupt the Hollywood execs.
Yeah.
And, I think that's really the powerful thing. And that's the vision that I see the platform really holding strong in diversifying the types of content that makes it two-screen.
Got it. Very cool. Yeah, I think the Hollywood model is definitely something that's just ripe for change. I mean, it's been the same way with filmmakers for decades. It's about time for a change. Cool. So, that being said, I know we talked about some of the ICOs and the problems that they're having. You guys are based on Ethereum, correct?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So what are you excited about? I know that there's a lot of noise going on in the space right now, but all that being said, are you excited about anything, outside of LiveTree ADEPT? What are you excited about in the space right now?
So Ethereum, the reason we chose Ethereum was that it enabled us to move away from just a currency-based model. It extended the ledger to the most valuable commodity we have, which is information.
Yeah.
So that enables us to essentially put information, which is IP for the entertainment industry, IP for the content, IP for films, onto the ledger, which we can then tie transactions to. And this was really attractive to us. The ability to scale, and we looked at Ethereum a couple of years ago when it first launched. 2014, it was 3 years now, 2014. But at that stage, it was at such a developmental stage, you could not build an enterprise application on top of it. I mean, at the moment, we've got to a point where we can build these enterprise applications that will disrupt a $500 billion industry and change the entire dynamic of how entertainment works. And I really see that as being a window. Everyone watches content. Everyone is engaged with content in some way, whether it's films or TVs or digital online channels. By this channel, by ADEPT blossoming and bringing into new online channels and into cinemas, into TV. So people are going to look back at this project in 5 to 10 years and say that was one of the catalysts that helped drive the dilution of that top 1% into the masses, who rose up and took control over what the things that they were getting fed. They took control over the censorship that dominates the news and the media around them, and decided to take control back and do it in a way that was productive, to a way of connecting to each other and developing ourselves and bringing about the much needed change that I think the world is transitioning to.
Nice. Yeah, I think there's so much space in like the filmmaker industry, because it's just so ripe, as I was saying, for disruption. And I totally agree that a lot of them, they need a vehicle to, especially something like Ethereum's network, like they can use it to such an extent that hasn't been possible before. It's such an exciting thing for filmmakers. And just kind of Hollywood's probably shaking.
Well, I think I speak to a lot of people in the industry as well, and they are cognizant of the fact that things are changing. As I mentioned, we're talking. We've got 3 films lined up for our MVP, and there's a lot of content out there. There's a lot of independent professional studios out there that have great content, but they're not getting it onto screen either because of these centralized controls. Whether it be the studios or the big online players, they're being locked out essentially at the front door. And LiveTree effectively gives them the power to get on screen via the fan, via the community. So it's a totally different model than anything out there at the moment. And I see that as being a disruptive nature that empowers the fan to take that control back and for more content to get onto screen, which is the thing that really excites me.
Yeah. Awesome. So how can people get involved in what you guys are doing?
So we launched, the first step is to participate in the token sale.
Mm-hmm.
So we launched the token sale on the 1st. The pre-ICO has some amazing discounts, I've got to say. It's a 50% discount. We have a lottery as well, so if you enter 7 ETH or more, your name will be put in a hat or shake it up and you'll have the chance to win 200,000 seed. There's also further discounts and so on. But it's really about this initial community who I see as being the foundation for the main sale. So the main sale is going to happen later in January, mid-January or so. And, there's a lot of our industry partners who have no idea about the blockchain. They are unfamiliar with the blockchain. And we recognize that, they're not going to, the industry is not going to change overnight. So we've built in facilities to accept fiat, but to also help drive value through the fees to token holders. But that second part is really where I would see the next stage of industry adoption. Within so in order to participate, let me just cut to the chase. You need to go to adept.livetree.com. It's very simple. Just press the buy seed button. There's some YouTube tutorials and so on for those newbies. And it's a very simple process. Set up your wallet, get some Ether, transfer it to the sale contract, and then your seed will instantly appear in your wallet, and you're in.
Nice. Yeah. And as someone that's a content creator myself, and I've been trying to help content creators for a while now, getting into the space and just helping them in different ways. I think that this type of disruption for filmmakers and Hollywood and the businesses and studios, that's really exciting. So thanks for the interview.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
That does it for this episode of Hackdroid Crypto. If you guys like this interview and you want to see more, smash that like button. If you guys are new here and you want to see more interviews and you like kind of learning about blockchain and cryptocurrencies, slap that subscribe button to join the family, and I will see you guys in the next episode of Hackdroid Crypto.